What's up, Barnhill family, and welcome back to your home for all things combat sports.
Yo.
So we got a great lightweight matchup this weekend, almost like a classic striker versus grappler, but not really because both of these guys are good everywhere. We have Gamrot versus Fiziev. Fiziev is a little bit of a favorite. I think minus 150 to like plus 120 for Mateusz Gamrot.
Not one you want to bet on.
Right. This one is a coin flip, absolutely. But how do you see it going, and who do you think is going to be getting their hand raised at the end of the night?
Well, I'm really excited to see this fight take place because of what it means for the 155 division. Now, both of these guys are right there on the cusp, and they are absolutely leading the charge for the next wave of top 155ers. You know, there's a bunch of big names that have been at the top of 155 for a really long time. You can go ahead and name them: Justin Gaethje, Dustin Poirier, all of these guys, Charles Oliveira. They've all been there, but it feels like their heyday has sort of taken place and is at the tail end of it right now. And all of those guys have given us so much over the years that we don't really expect another 5 or 10 years out of those guys. But the Mateusz Gamrots and the Fizievs, these guys, they have a whole long career ahead of them. And I think this fight means a lot because these two guys are leading the pack as far as everybody else coming in and being these new names, the fresh blood, if you will, at 155. And that's so fun that you say it's a striker versus grappler, because it is, but it's always fun to say that these days. And then you go out there and watch it and you're like, oh, we forgot MMA is the fastest growing, fastest progressing sport in the world. And these grapplers are really good strikers, and these strikers are really great grapplers. You know, Fiziev might never be the guy that's going to shoot in and take a double leg or a single leg on somebody, especially not somebody like Gamrot. But his takedown defense against RDA is something that all fighters should study, because if you're a guy that wants to keep the fight on the feet, wants to be exciting and go out for knockouts, that's the type of defense you need. And all the same sort of things as far as how to take a fight where you want it, how to put somebody on their back and keep them there, can be given to Gamrot as a lot of great compliments, because these guys are masters at everything, but they're really, really good at specializing in a couple of positions in MMA.
Yeah, I mean, Gamrot went out there and out-wrestled Arman Sarukian, but then, you know, he went in there against Beneil Dariush and lost a pretty clear decision. Yeah. So, and the same thing can be said for Fiziev, the grappler, quote-unquote, RDA, who also does have great striking, and RDA is pretty damn good everywhere. But RDA was not able to take down Fiziev, and Fiziev was able to implement his game plan. But then when Justin Gaethje gave Fiziev exactly the fight he wanted, which was a stand-up brawl, and I think a lot of people, myself included, thought that Rafael Fiziev was going to win that fight. Yep. I was surprised to see Justin Gaethje absolutely piece him up. So MMA never goes the way you think it's going to go, but the way I think this fight is going to go is Fiziev is going to win the fight. I think he's going to probably either get a clear-cut decision or a late finish. Mateusz Gamrot is a cardio machine, and I think that Fiziev is going to really have to implement a lot of that good defensive wrestling. He's going to have to play the distance game. He's going to have to do some stuff early on in the fight, land some shots that really make Gamrot respect him, and then show and telegraph his takedown attempts a little bit more than he likely would if he wasn't respecting the power so much. So I think the game plan for Fiziev is come out early, land some big, heavy shots, keep the distance. Don't put yourself at too much risk for the takedown early on until you've accumulated a little damage. Chew up those legs, land some big body kicks, and then look for your finish later on. And I think that's probably what will happen.
Yeah, I agree. And for both guys, this fight is super important to win, because they're right there on the cusp of breaking into the discussion with all the biggest names in their division and all the biggest names in the sport, really. 155 is stacked top to bottom, but a loss here would send you back in the queue a little bit. So I think the main thing to watch out for is the pacing of this fight. Both guys are going to want to dictate the pace and fight at their tempo. And whoever's able to do that, I believe, will be able to get their hand raised, right? So Gamrot is going to want to stand and strike a little bit, but then at the right time and in the right portion of the round, he's going to need to take it to the ground and control so he can steal some of the early rounds from Fiziev, because everybody knows wrestling gets more and more difficult as you get tired and as things get sweatier. And these guys are going to be fighting for 5 rounds, so they've really got to control their pace and dictate where this fight takes place if they want to win. Fiziev needs to get Gamrot tired, and there's a couple ways that he can do that. Early on, I think he needs to hit him with some serious power, both to the head, but more importantly to the body. He's got some of the best kicks, some of the best teeps, pushes, switch kicks, all that stuff in the entire sport, and he's got to make Gamrot respect that power early on. while not getting his legs caught in one of those things and wind up getting taken down with a double or a single. And then as the fight progresses and he starts to kill Gamrot's gas tank, he's going to have to start utilizing that same sort of takedown defense that he did against RDA. And that's how I see him zapping the energy from a couple different angles for Gamrot. I know this is a 5-round fight. It's going to be fought at an interesting pace, and I think these guys are so high level that you're going to see a lot of wrinkles in both of their games. But I can see Fiziev getting his hand raised after a long-fought decision. You know, he's got a little bit more 5-round experience than Gamrot. He's been in there with tougher opposition, you know, former champions. He's got his hand raised against them. So I think Fiziev is going to be able to get the job done, but this is certainly not an easy night in the office.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right with your assessment of what Rafael Fiziev needs to do early on in the fight. He's got to stay composed. He's got to stay with his feet under him. He can't take too many risks with high head kicks or telegraphed kicks that can be caught and then ultimately used to get him to the ground. He's got to be super sharp. He's got to really work the body, land some big shots, work the legs as well. I think the legs are going to be just as important as the body. If he can chew the legs of Mateusz Gamrot up, that will slow down the takedown attempts a little bit.
Right.
Also will make them a little bit more telegraphed. And one of the only saving graces, if you're the striker and you want to keep the fight standing and you've got just an absolute cardio machine of a wrestler that you're trying to fight, like Mateusz Gamrot, is slowing them down a bit, because if you can't stop what you don't see coming. And Gamrot, if you watch some of his fights, especially against Arman Tsarukyan, he was throwing double legs like you throw a jab. I mean, he was just going in there, takedown attempt after takedown attempt after takedown attempt. I think there was like 30-something takedown attempts in that fight, if I remember correctly. I mean, and Arman Tsarukyan is no slouch when it comes to grappling. So, you know, there's a lot to be said for who the opponent was in that fight. So I think Fiziev's got a good game plan for it. I think he's strong enough, and his grappling has come a long way since his Muay Thai days, because remember, he was just a Muay Thai fighter who was big and strong and moved into MMA, and he's added the other elements of his game. But I feel like he's had enough time now to refine those elements. And I think, much like Israel Adesanya developed good takedown defense in his career, Rafael Fiziev is doing the same thing now, and we're going to see improvements to his game. And that's why I think he's going to be able to keep the fight standing largely. I think if he does get taken down, he will be able to get back up without being finished. And then I think he's really going to shine in rounds 3, 4, and 5, and that's where he'll probably either run away with the fight or get a technical knockout or just a clean KO.
Yeah, those are great points. And if Fiziev can get Gamrot slowed down early on in the fight and maybe start questioning his ability to take the fight to the ground, we could really see him pull away in those last few rounds. And this fight is probably going to be one of the ones where you don't want to blink, even though it's likely going to last all 25 minutes. You're not going to want to blink for very much of this, because these guys are so electric and so precise with everything they do. It's high level through and through, and it's just really good indicator for where the lightweight division is headed, because we've known for the longest time it's been the most competitive, you know, best division that the UFC's ever seen. And right now, these guys are kind of leading the way for what's to come at 155, and it looks like the future for the 155 division is in some good hands.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a great fight.
For sure.